think it was very valid that you selected in the list of 40 the idea of understanding yourself better and understanding other people better. In your opinion, in this group, which person would you say represents the best picture of someone who's physical?
Carter.
Carter, would you come up, please? Right here. That's it. Right there.
Rich.
Royce said it?
Rich. Get up. Rich.
What's that?
What?
Okay, number 2. Your choice of the person who's the most mental, intellectual out of the group.
Royce.
Oh, jeez. Morris.
Rich.
Morris.
Intellectual.
Is it Rich? Okay, Rich.
Don't worry, Rich. I'll be standing next to you.
Okay, one more. Your choice of the person who's most emotional.
Royce.
Everybody got a foot there. Hey, don't cry about me. Don't get emotional.
Why don't you quit worrying about it?
If I had any past behavior to prove otherwise, I wouldn't.
That's great. That's great. I've done this a few times. The person might ready to talk back to me. Okay, what you going to take notes while you do this?
Sure.
He's the mental one. Now, what we have here, I want you to let me metaphor you once again, and let this be one person. See, we're made up of 3 parts. When we were born, when the baby was first born, all we were concerned about was physical. Okay? I mean, really, you know, for a few minutes or for a few hours, all we cared about is that he lived, right? We want the baby to live. And probably for the first several weeks, at least, the concern is that we feed you enough and keep you dry, and things like that. And totally, almost entirely devote ourselves to the physical well-being of this person. And what's true is then, this prevails throughout the rest of our life, is that we give a great deal of attention to the physical. But he wasn't but a matter of, should we say, weeks old, maybe months in some cases, that just attending to the physical wasn't enough. Some other needs, you two have got to change places. Yeah, thank you very much. Some other needs began to surface. This child can no longer be treated just as a physical person because some emotional needs begin surfacing. There comes a time when we discover that this child is developing another dimension. Sometimes the child is only happy when it's being touched or held. Even though it's dry and it's full, it begins to show some needs for touching. And a little later, for just all kinds of attention. In fact, this child probably in a few months begins to manipulate us with its emotional needs. Crying when we don't say coochie-coo, and responding with a smile when we give you attention. So I see this second area of needs begin to emerge, and what's true is if we do not attend to those emotional needs, this child will not be healthy and whole. Now, shortly after that, perhaps a little longer span of time, mental needs begin to emerge. Maybe when he started crawling, okay, he goes around and he picks things up and he looks at them. Long before his mind was working logically, he was absorbing information just by touching things and seeing things. And then the mental needs emerge even more, and before he goes to kindergarten, he probably is able to count to 100 and know the colors and say some of the ABCs and this type of thing. So the progressive development of every human being is that we have physical needs, and we have emotional needs, and we have mental needs. Now this is pretty simple. This is something that you knew. But there's a dimension of it that I hope to add, which once again I believe will throw some light on the 2% as we continue to look for that. This is what we call a 3-part mechanism: physical, the emotional, and the mental. Now in the world, pretty much, I'm talking about society, the institutional world, society, educational institutions, governmental institutions, medical institutions, all of the people with the reputations and the bucks. They generally consider this to be a complete person. In fact, there are agencies out there, including the government, that reward us if we stay healthy in these three areas. We'll have the President's program for physical fitness, and we got the people jogging. That's promoted today to keep us strong and healthy. Even if it's for nothing more than for us to be in good shape when they start a war. We'll be able to go fight it if we're strong and healthy, you see. Also, they have a great deal of focus upon keeping people emotionally healthy. Some corporations now are having a retained counselor or psychiatrist to attend to the emotional needs of people. But see, most places where they reward us for staying strong emotionally is because they want more productivity. And they feel like if the person is sound in their mind and they're balanced in their home, they'll produce better. And then, of course, rewarding us mentally, great, you know, the higher diploma you get in college, the more money you make. And so this becomes the model for what society teaches us is the total person. But you see, there's a flaw in that. Because we're going to discover a little bit that this is not a total person. It's just that all the powers to be in the world consider this to be the total person. This total person right here, or the alleged total person, is a very selfish total person. Because as long as only the body, the emotions, and the mind are involved in their thinking on a daily basis, it is totally selfish. Because, you see, the mind is committed to making sure that the body stays intact. The function of the mind has always been just for our protection and to guard us and to make us smarter so we can protect ourselves better, to make us wiser so we can make more money and have even more comfort for our body. This is a little unit dedicated to self-survival. Even emotions translate everything in terms of what is the value to me. The emotions of this three-part person lives as if it's a me-first world or a me-only world in many cases. And so in this three-part mechanism, we have a very selfish, but apparently the experience of us all, introverted, self-focused existence. And the world considers that to be complete. Now, until, I would say, since the 1930s, and more accurately, even since the 60s, there became a broad base of knowledge in discovering that this is not a total person, that there's another dimension to a human being that we had not really categorized before. Now, some ancient teachers and some spiritual movements had always talked about this other dimension, but generally it was not considered to be very credible. However, today, even in the field of medicine and psychiatry and the human potential movement, etc., we have learned that there's another dimension of a person required before they can be complete. And for lack of a better word, we refer to this as a spiritual dimension. So what I want is for you all to pick the person who would most typify that spiritual dimension. Who would that be? Scott. Scott?
Matthew.
Okay, Matthew. Come on up.
Spirits mix.
Right department, right department. Not distilled.
Who cares if I'll clarify?
Now, just to tell you how Matthew came on board in this person, it goes like this. This three-part person goes through life excelling and achieving and looking for security and looking to build up the full barns and things of this nature. And no matter how much this three-part person achieves, somewhere, someday, they step back and scratch their head and they say, is this all there is? You know? That's the beginning of this guy waking up within the person. It's when they begin to realize that no matter how hard I push and how much I drive, this somehow is not fulfilling me. I'm not rewarded the way I thought I would be. Now, while that side experiences as negative, that three-part mechanism, what's really happening is that the fourth part of this person has begun to speak and to say, hey, it isn't complete enough for you. There's more of you here that you don't know about yet. Routinely, this begins to happen naturally in a person somewhere after the age of 30. That is, if you go by averages. 30 to 40 years old, that's when people begin to really reassess their life and their values and what they're doing with themselves. Other times, it happens sooner by people who truly have a spiritual experience, a transformation, an awakening. It happens to lots of people in a church or spiritual environment, and it happens to lots of people in a training environment such as this, where they really awaken to another dimension of themselves.